going to get started. My name is Emily Levinson, and I'm one of the organizers of the Pittsburgh Craft Collective. And with Carrie Nardini, who's also the head of I Made It Market, we thought that it would be a good idea to bring a social media panel specifically for those who have small businesses or handmade businesses and what really the power of using social media can be. We had done, through the Pittsburgh Craft Collective, a series called The Business of Craft, and we had a social media introduction to it that happened to be the most attended course of the whole day. And so we thought that there was a big audience for this, particularly for handmade, because a lot of people who are starting out businesses don't have a lot of money, if any, to market their business, and really want effective ways to be able to promote themselves and to get their name out there, to get their branding out there. So this is really kind of what brought about wanting to do this for PodCamp, to help kind of get all of this together for people. So that's sort of how we got started with it. But today we have a couple goals, and then we'll have everybody introduce themselves. But we're going to talk about kind of finding your voice as a handmade business or as a crafter, or even as a small business. Anytime we say kind of handmade business, you can put in small business. It really will apply to everything. Where to focus your efforts, how to kind of use Twitter, Facebook, and some of the other social media pieces for your business. Kind of using a local scope versus on a national scope. Kind of the frequency of using all of the different pieces. Should you tweet every day? Should you tweet every 5 minutes? Should you be doing this? How often do you update your Facebook page? Those kind of things. Blogging. And then also the importance of relationship building, because really that's what social media is about. And so we're going to be talking about the importance of doing all of those things. So if people want to introduce themselves, and then I guess we can just jump right in. And if anybody has questions, please ask them. This is really for your benefit, and we want you to kind of be participants in this panel. We have information, but we want to make it pertinent to you. We're live streaming ourselves. Oh, yeah.
It's not the computers.
Where we at? I have that. I think it's function and one of the F8 keys. Like there should be like a
Oh wait, no.
Sorry, we're having technical difficulties.
My name is Tori Nisnick, and I have a blog called Eco Fashionista, where I blog about all sorts of eco fashion. Sorry, I'm kind of all sorts of eco fashion type of things. I'm an occasional DIYer, and then I also am a social media consultant for small businesses, and especially creative or lifestyle businesses. So hopefully I can help you with all sorts of questions.
I'm Lindsay Petros. I write the blog I Heart PGH, and I work for a national veterans organization called Vote Vets, and I do their online communications. I've been recently working for Libsyn, Liberated Syndication. We do podcast hosting. If anybody's a podcaster, I'd be happy to talk with them more about that. We have a session later this afternoon if you're interested in podcasting and iPhone apps. And I've worked for a number of companies. I like to make things. I've met everybody here on the panel. Well, I've known Tori from childhood, but we reconnected through social media. And everybody else here has become friends, and we've built more than a network, but a friendship through using social media and sort of a shared love of Pittsburgh and supporting local businesses and buying things handmade.
I'm Carrie Nardini. I'm the organizer of the I Made It Market, which is a nomadic indie craft marketplace, which means that we pop into different events organizations and have our own events where local artists who are handmade makers have the opportunity to sell their wares. We also partner with nonprofit community and arts organizations to raise awareness and funds for their organizations. I professionally do social media and marketing for small businesses, nonprofits, and other organizations. And I was able to launch with my partner, Nina Barbudo, my partner in I Made It, who unfortunately isn't here with us today, but we did sort of launch our business on social media. So it's come a long way since as I said in the previous panel, the 3 long years since we started. We originally were on MySpace. So it's come a really long way, and it's extremely helpful for us in promoting all of the small independent artists who, it gives people a voice. So thank you, and looking forward to answering questions.
And again, my name is Emily Levinson. I am one of the organizers of the Pittsburgh Craft Collective, as well as having my own crafty business. My business is Subu Inc. I have actually used social media and blogging to really build my business in a way that I never thought was possible. Before I actually met Lindsay, she's the one who got me to start blogging, but before I had done that, I was really reaching a very small crowd of people on a site called Etsy. And once I set up my blog and really got kind of into Twitter, my audience grew, and I've actually really connected and used it to connect on a very local level in Pittsburgh, because it's very important to me that I really am connecting with people from Pittsburgh. I have a whole line of books that are kind of a shout out to Pittsburgh, and really kind of am using it as a way to build relationships for my business, and has really ended up helping it to kind of get to the next level for me. And I never thought it would be possible before I even started doing it. So that's kind of my background. I've seen it on a personal level work, but also for an organization. It's one of the main reasons that the Pittsburgh Craft Collective grew from a group of 7 people starting it to a membership of over 80 people. And we really attribute Facebook, social media, Twitter, all of those things to really growing our group and getting awareness and attention for what we're doing. So we've seen it on kind of both, I've seen it on both levels in that way.
My name's Amy Garbark. I am connected to all of this through I Made It Market and the Pittsburgh Craft Collective. I am a small business owner too. I make screen printed apparel and accessories under the name Garbella. And I'll be posting any questions that people are posting online. I'll be posing them to the group.
All right, who wants to start?
I guess I can kick things off. So we sort of had some ideas from past panels and just from questions that we get often that people might have whenever, particularly launching their online presence or focusing their online presence for the business of craft. So these are some of the different items that we thought people would like to hear about. But from an organizational standpoint, I guess I'll start and then see if anyone has some other input. But it's important to think about your brand and who your target audience is when you're deciding where on social media and where from an online selling perspective you want to focus your time and effort, because it can be time consuming, especially if you're putting the time and effort into creating really great images which are helpful in selling your wares online. So again, it is really great to have an online presence. It gives you legitimacy. People know that they can find you. There's conversation about you. So the ways to go about it, I think, are to first sort of sit down and think a lot about what you're making, who you want to sell it to, and then to potentially even reach out and get some input about the best places to put those things. So from an organizational standpoint, sort of making some of your own organization, thinking about where you're going to start and focusing your time. If you're already established, sort of reassessing what's working and what you're spending the most time on and what makes sense and is the most successful. So does anybody want to sort of stand up from an organizational standpoint?
I would just piggyback on that I think your story is an important part of marketing. How many people in your crafters or small business owners, or I just wanted to get a sense of what people are interested in, but I think your story can be a really valuable part of marketing, and understanding where I think people now, especially there's a huge handmade and local movement, are looking to sort of get the story behind it. And that can be as powerful, if not more powerful, than an ad, whether it's a print ad or a television ad of telling that story. And before I was a blogger, I worked on political campaigns. And I knew nothing, and they sent me to this campaign training in Atlanta, and we spent 2 days practicing telling our story. I was like, what is this? But, what holds true in the political campaign world also holds true in the business world of your storytelling is a really powerful way to engage people. So when I first started working on the presidential campaign, a big part of getting other people engaged was telling how I got engaged in the presidential campaign. And I think that really carries over into social media, and I talk about blogs as an ongoing story. And your blog is an ongoing opportunity to tell a little bit about you, tell a little bit about your product, tell a little bit about your materials, and each of those pieces might engage a different customer.
And I think too, I think people get nervous about, well, do I have to have a blog, a Facebook, a Twitter account? There are 17 different kinds of social media. Which one should I use? Do I have to use all of them? And I think it's better to be really good at one and use that really well than it is to do 10 and kind of suck at them all. There's really, because you want it to be the best representation of yourself and of your business, and if it's not fun for you, like a lot of people don't enjoy blogging, if you don't enjoy it, don't do it. If you like Twitter, rock it and do it well and use it as a way to make your story known and to connect and to build relationships. But don't kind of get caught up in I have to do all of it at all points in time, because you really don't. And I think if you're just getting started, then it's important to focus on one, build it, and then move to another. And then use them to kind of work in conjunction together. But, I think in the last panel we had a lot of people saying, oh my God, there are 17 things that I have to do, and I have to do them all tonight, and I want to get started. And then if you're not kind of understanding it, or if it's not working for you, if it gets boring, you're going to walk away from it, and it's going to be kind of a wasted effort. So I think kind of if you're just getting started, try one. If you already have one, try another and kind of see how it works for you, but don't necessarily jump in and do 5 at once, because you really want to kind of figure out the flow of each thing, like Twitter or a blog, or kind of get in the habit of doing it before you start to add in too much, because then you might just drop all of it. And this is really about marketing and marketing yourself well, and so you want to kind of focus your efforts in one place first and then grow it. I started a blog. I did a blog for a year before I moved into Twitter. And then before I did that, and then once I was solid in Twitter, I moved to Facebook. So I used all of the different pieces as a way to promote the next and to connect them all together and to kind of build that branding, as you're talking about, and cohesiveness with the marketing strategy, but I didn't feel like I needed to jump in all at once. And I think it's a helpful, it's helpful to kind of go in that way so that you're not overloading yourself in the beginning also.
And I think from an organizational point of view, it's important to make sure people know that you're doing this. You don't want to do it and then not tell anyone about it. So if you have an Etsy shop or wherever you're selling online, or whatever your presence is online, even if it's just email and you have an email signature, put your Twitter handle or a link to your blog in your email signature. Make sure that it's on your Etsy page or wherever you are. Make sure if you're on Facebook that your Twitter name is mentioned somewhere on your page there. Because a lot of people, I'm finding, I'll find a lot of shops on Etsy, and then you want to connect with them more. Maybe I'll mention them on my blog, and I want to let them know that I mentioned them on my blog. It's kind of hard to find, I'll have to do a separate search on Facebook because they don't put a link on it. So if you're doing it, make sure you tell people how to get there.
One of the best descriptions I've heard from social media is your blog or your website is your hub. And all of these other tools, whether it's Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter, are spokes, outposts. And you use all of these things to get people back there. So Carrie might look at Twitter all day. I should say Emily is probably looking at Twitter all day, and just because I know them. And Carrie is more likely to be on Facebook. And so part of it is just being there, because you're going to catch different audiences and just link people back to what's on your website. And there are ways to automate it a bit. So I have iHeart Pittsburgh set up that when I do a post on the blog, it automatically creates a post on Facebook and a post on Twitter. So I don't have to remember to go, oh, did I update this? Did I update this? Did I update this? You can set it up so it automates. So I post once, and then it goes.
So you just sort of segued into where I sort of wanted to go and talking about voice. There are different schools of thought about your voice and your branding. And so in utilizing social media, it is important to, again, be careful with your time depending on what you have available to focus on it. So having services where you have your updates, especially if you updated your blog, and then it's automatically going to get posted to your other social media where individuals, different individuals will check. You want to have that, but you also want to ensure that you have your voice coming out so that people can establish a connection with you, get to know more about what you're doing and why you're doing it, and they can feel a connection. So with I Made It, we recently started a YouTube channel, which is helpful in having another social media medium in providing the voice of people, especially people who maybe aren't on social media. It gives you the feel for where they're coming from and the passion behind what they're making. So the thought is that to let your voice be heard and find ways when you're blogging and using these different social media, depending on how much time you're putting into it, to have a good voice that really identifies you rather than sort of just putting out a message.
Are most people in the room on Twitter already? Yes? No? Okay, so kind of half the room. When you're talking about your business or using this as a way to market your business, it's important that your personality comes through in all of it, because if you're just saying, I have a sale today, or, look at this, I just posted something on Etsy, it is the fastest way to get unfollowed or to get people really bored with what you're doing if all you're talking about is, here's my sale, here's my promotion, go look at this, I just made this today and listed it.
5 Twitter posts just like that in a row.
It's the fastest way to lose people. And so what people want to see isn't that you have a sale, they want to see who you are. They want to know what your process is. They want to know how you create. They want to learn more about who you are as a person so that it relates and endears them to your business. And it's important to use that as a way to kind of then say, well, how do I want people to see me? How do I want people to connect to me as a business? And then infuse who you are into that. Because really, as a small business, it's you. That's what people like about your business is you. And yes, they like your product. And yes, it's important to have a good product. But if people don't like you, they're not going to support you. And you'll find that people will want to support you more if they can connect to you more and build that relationship. So it's really important. And it's different to post private things on your Twitter or on your Facebook, and it's another thing to allow it to be personal. So to share about who you are, your personality, without having to say where you live, what you ate, what your social security number is, and all those things, but to really kind of say more about and let that come through, because otherwise it's going to be just straight marketing and you're going to get people who are kind of bored out of their mind with it.
And it goes right back to Lindsay's tell your story. I worked in nonprofit. The most important thing is telling the story of how that organization is providing a service and who the end user, the end recipient is. It's really about telling the story in marketing and fundraising and creating a readership.
I think people can get really easily intimidated by what am I going to say, whether it's a blog post that's kind of long or if it's Twitter and it's just 140 characters. So even when I'm doing consulting with some of my local business clients, we'll have they want to have 15 emails back and forth for what should our status message be today. I'm not sure about the tone of that, and should we say hanging or should we say chillin'? And it's oh my God, just let it flow. Just say whatever you want to say. And if you're a crafter, I think you can just, if you want to do a posting about something you don't want to say, just look at something you made recently and what's the first thing that comes to mind? How would you describe it to somebody? How does it make you feel? A lot of people stress about what they're going to write, but don't make it too complicated. Just simple is better, straightforward. Yeah.
I'm curious what kind of questions people have. How can we be useful?
Shoot some things our way.
I mean, we can just keep talking about social media if you want, but if we're happy to answer questions.
I'm just interested. I'm not a craft making person. I don't think I'm but do you guys think of your social media activities as a craft? Are there any things that you use in your crafting that you sort of transfer to the way you approach social media?
That's a great question.
That's deep.
I think that a lot of people can personalize the look and feel of your presence online and make it reminiscent of your craft and your personality, because hopefully they sort of go hand in hand. So you can put custom wallpapers on your Twitter page, make sure that your logo or whatever profile picture you have is reminiscent of your craft. So that'll kind of build a brand of you.
Yeah, I mean, I just had an interview with a new doctor and she was like, what do you do for fun? And I felt really dumb saying, I like to work on my blogs. But, you know, that's sort of a hobby. You know, as much as I like to knit, you know, I actually like working on websites probably too much. So there's a little bit of a hobby. There's also some really interesting craft blogs and craft projects where people are using social media. Like there was somebody who was cross-stitching 1,000 different Twitter messages and people that are knitting streams on Twitter. I mean, there's some really interesting art projects that have been inspired by digital media that you can find on some of the larger craft blogs that I think are, you know, 10 years ago, the idea of cross-stitching a tweet and the description that went along with it was really interesting in terms of the artist was trying to make a statement about these sort of digital messages and making them more permanent by needle pointing them or cross-stitching them. And I thought that was a really interesting project.
There's also jewelry that you can get with hashtags and your Twitter handle on them, and you know, people are really using all of this kind of social media as inspiration for craft. And I think for me personally, in my business, the way that I describe what I'm doing, I like to be snarky and have fun with it, and I like to be snarky and have fun on social media. So my personality is being infused in all of the different areas. And I found that when I really put myself into all of this, I mean, before, probably like a year ago, all I had was just a basic description. This is made with this color, this stamp, this product, and just kind of list the specs on it. And yeah, I would sell things, but when I started to tell a story or use definitions that were kind of from Urban Dictionary or to kind of make fun of what things are, I ended up tripling my sales. And so it was a way to use my personality and kind of how I interact with people in the descriptions and made it funny. And then I use that, I mean, that's just my tone in everything that I do. It's on my blog, it's on my descriptions, it's in my Twitter. So all of that is sort of put into, and the books are the same. They really haven't changed all that much with what I make. So I found a way to kind of use that. And so it is a bit of a craft to kind of find that voice. And there is a little bit of kind of playing around with it, you know, to get yourself in all of these pieces without feeling like, you know, you're going to lose people by doing it. But I think I've really kind of built more loyalty being myself than I have trying to be, you know, this kind of cold business and, you know, trying to be so professional. That really being personal has helped me immensely.
Well, I think to go off, to go with that, my mom just launched a jewelry business Thursday.
Oh, congratulations.
So she's worried about like posting too much on Facebook, like just, you know, hammering people buy.
Frequency.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think as, not to interrupt you, but I think that part of that is getting to know, you want to build a community and you want to build it organically, so you want to be putting all these things we're talking about into practice and let people find you through the methods that exist as far as, you know, depending on where she is, if she's selling on Etsy, if she has friends she can reach out to in the real world, also to let them know. But to grow that by also participating in finding other blogs and commenting and meeting people and participating in communities online will help to organically grow hers. Then she can also reach out and ask people and, you know, share what she's doing, and then those people can also follow. But as that occurs, you know, a more natural conversation can take place and she'll get a feel for that. But to just bombard people with it from the start, it's gonna, people may, I think, you know, that's not a best practice, and it may turn people off, right?
I totally agree. I have a friend who's a glass artist, and he posts something like every day about something he's doing. The work is really nice, but it's too much.
Is he talking about his work or is he talking about himself?
Is this on his personal Facebook page or his fan page?
His personal Facebook page, and he's showing stuff that he's doing, but he's not. It feels more like it's selling as opposed to,
right.
Gee, I'm creating this, and I'm a painter, so I'm trying to figure out what I want to say. I have another issue though, but I look at that and I'm like, ooh, I don't want to be, you know.
Sit right.
Yeah, paint. Look at my paintings. Look at my paint. You know, I don't. You know.
And I think that's what you said about your mom. You know, her messages are buy. That's definitely, you don't want to do that. You could be posting a little more frequently than would be advisable. if it's more personal and more interesting. But if you're posting so frequently and it's a buy, it's like way too much overload.
Yeah.
Engaging in conversation with other people who are in that interest group, whether they're makers, buyers, or sellers, that will help too, because she can learn from them and they may comment. And maybe someone will see the comment from them. And there's some local resources. I don't think we put it up, but there's a website called Handmade in PA, H-I-P-A? No, Handmade Hip. Yeah, and so just Google Handmade in PA. It was started by Tara Gentili, who now runs Scouty Girl. She's also a great resource. But there's also the Pittsburgh Craft Collective. So these are different places where locally, on a smaller, well, not necessarily a smaller scale, but locally, be it Pennsylvania or Pittsburgh specific, she can start meeting people and talking with them. So when you're looking at sort of your internal closer audience, then you can expand in a more natural fashion that will allow her to have better results.
And there's nothing wrong for her to post on her personal Facebook page. I just opened a business store. I just started a jewelry business. I'm super excited about it. Please check it out. Show some love, whatever it is. There's nothing wrong with doing that. It's when it becomes every 5 to 10 minutes. Did you see my jewelry store? Did you go to it yet? Did you buy something yet? It gets really annoying. But and it also depends on the medium. If you're on Facebook, it gets really annoying very quickly to see somebody change their status every 10 minutes saying, I just listed on my jewelry store, I just listed this.
Yeah.
Have you been? Have you checked out my site? But on Twitter, it's different because people expect that you're going to be updating it more frequently. So she can post it in a different ratio of, hey, I just launched it, have you seen it? Here's one of my favorite pieces. Hey, I just did a blog post about my new store. That's okay to put it in a couple times a day, but still you have to connect with people. And if you're just doing the look at me, look at me, look at me, you're not going to get very far on social media in any avenue that you try. So it's really, it goes back to finding your voice, telling your story, and also connecting to people in a way that you are not just talking about yourself, but really kind of reaching out to others, joining in on the conversation, building relationships, building community. And when you do that, people naturally want to check out what you're doing, who you are, and what you're about. And so it grows it organically, as Carrie's saying, instead of do this, look at me, here I am, which there are a lot of people who do it, and I'll tell you it's the fastest way that I unfollow somebody is if it's just Etsy listings or Etsy updates or I had a sale today. They're out of my feed in about 2 seconds.
There are some other tools available too, like we'll talk about, we'll mention Pavement, but there are some tools where you can do merchandising sort of in a Facebook tab as well. And there are auto feeds where if you list to Etsy, it shows up. We've had some really great successes from some vendors who are related to I Made It Market. I'll see in Facebook if they are on the main page of Etsy, it'll automatically show up, and they may not have even known because it might have happened overnight. They wake up and there are like 25 comments. Oh my God, that's so exciting! Congratulations! So there's some good side to auto posting, and then there's just maintaining, being on top of it and sort of knowing.
Going back to what you were saying about telling a story behind, and I don't know if you can do this, and I don't know if anybody's tried it. I do a lot of fair and festival vending, and as such, over the years, I've developed a little story that goes with pretty much everything I have. Is there a way to make a small MP3 file of that and just attach it to the product listing? That along with putting the text there, hey, here's what I say at.
On Etsy?
Well, I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I don't have I know I can do it on my own page because I write my own page.
Sure. If you're selling it on Etsy, unfortunately, no, it's only text-based.
But you could link back to your own page.
You can, but unless people do have like Grease Monkey where it's like linkifying everything on it, if it's a hyperlink, it doesn't show up as a hyperlink in the text unless you have, if you use Firefox, there's something called Grease Monkey, which will, and the plugin is linkification.
But there's lots of vendors that have links that are hyperlinked, and I have to check. I have opened them.
But what I'm saying is that a viable? Has anybody tried that? Does it?
I've never come across it, but it doesn't mean it's not a good idea. And the other thing you could do is put it on a blog. That if you have these stories that you want to tell, put it in a blog and then list back to your item or put a picture of what it is that you're selling and tell people where they can find it. So then you're connecting pieces.
I would argue that the advantage to video if I'm on your site, I'm probably more likely to buy. The video piece is probably going to help you get some coverage from other blogs and even press that can then drive more eyeballs to your site. I think that would be the
I wasn't
advantage.
really talking about a video piece.
Or
I was just
I.
talking
But
about.
video might be a good option for you because YouTube is, hugely searched by people and by the spiders.
And if you're talking about something that you made, you could be showing it in the video.
It doesn't have to be a long video either. But you can tag it, all sorts of different functions.
Isn't it really like stop watching after like 30 seconds essentially if you're not in?
Yeah, you don't want like a 5-minute video.
I think what you could reference a lot is like hip hop blogs do a lot of MP3 linking for explaining tracks or minor interviews. And I mean, I listen to them all the time. I know people that listen to a quick MP3 that's just linked in. Even through Twitter, I mean, Kanye has so many things going up. John Legend, The Roots, their latest album, that's how they publicized it all. And they get a lot of people going there, and you can watch how many people are just talking about it in that sense. So I think MP3s are a viable option for sure.
So those are some great Twitter feeds for you to go to and check out. Thank you.
I would definitely find it appealing. If I see a picture of whatever this thing is that you're selling and I think it's cool and I want to know more about it, that's why I like if I'm at a craft fair or something, like I'm psyched when the person actually wants to talk to me and tell me about it. And I think audio is, if that's what you're comfortable with, I think it's totally fine. And it's easy to record, just
especially
through the mic, it can be real lo-fi and personal.
Especially if you can connect audio with a picture. I mean, it's a lot more important.
I think too, if for handmade businesses, specifically art craft, people are very visual and they want to see what you're talking about. They want to know what the product is. So if you're just doing the audio, I think you're missing half of the piece to it. So if you don't feel comfortable being on video and you want to use the audio files, at least show a picture of what it is so that people know what you're talking about and then can connect to it.
Well, it would, I mean, there'd be a picture there. Of course, I wouldn't just do a text. And I make these great dice, and they're $5 here. They, buy them here. Well,
This is why they're special.
A lot of the modern Seismic Desktop 2 or TweetDeck, I think, are moving into displaying pictures in the stream too. So I mean, that is another reason to think about using the photos. Also.
I had a really cool story. There's a man who was a teacher in Pittsburgh Public Schools for his entire career, and he was a vendor in our Southside Works Exposed event this summer, and he has a really great story behind the woodwork he does. He reclaims fallen lumber and fallen trees in the back of his yard. He makes these really unique, amazing items. But the hook is really that he is actually legally blind. He has very limited vision, but I took a short video of him. It's very rough. I'm not a video editor. It's gotten a lot of hits, and it made him feel really great because he was able to tell his story. And by being a teacher, he really enjoys connecting with people. So for him, not being on social media, but having a really amazing item with a story behind it, and then a story behind him as a maker, we were able to get the story out about him and provide him with some more hits. He does. He has a website but doesn't do other social media, from my understanding. But it's a great medium to use.
There's a question
Yay!
online, and it's at Loose Screw. It says, I feel like having a story or a voice is easier said than done. Are there any tips for getting there or finding it?
Sure. I mean, so I had a situation on the happy hour on Friday night. So I write I Heart Pittsburgh. It's very positive. That's the brand I've created around Pittsburgh. I tweet very happy things most of the time around Pittsburgh, except when I was having a problem on the bus the other day. But, I have chosen to not use that platform to complain about Pittsburgh. Now, Lindsay Petros, the person, don't get me wrong, I love Pittsburgh, but, I'm not personally espousing. So I'm just using this as an example of creating a voice for your brand and your voice. Now, if you follow I Heart Pittsburgh or Facebook, I often post things that I think are interesting. I read lots of craft blogs, I read, I follow all sorts of different things for work. Hey, check out this event in Los Angeles. Isn't this interesting? Sometimes I can tie it back to Pittsburgh. Sometimes I just think it's interesting. And I want to post it. And You know, if you, like most people are interested in the internet, lots of bloggers follow me, so I'll often say, gee, hey, here's a new WordPress plugin I've tried out, or there's an email newsletter I get every day called Netted, which features a new website every day, and some of them I think are great, some of them I think are totally dumb. When I think there's an interesting one, I'll often post it and ask if anybody else has used it. So it's not all Pittsburgh all the time. It's a little bit of me. It's a little bit geek. But I hope this example sort of sets off creating a voice for your brand and using a little bit of your voice and the sort of image you want for your brand. But on Friday night, I said something to somebody, and I had to say, you cannot tweet that I just said that. Please do not tweet that.
Yeah, I think it ties back to when you're looking to find your voice, it ties back to what are you trying to accomplish with your social media? What are you trying to do with your marketing? And then why? Why are you doing it? Why are you wanting to tweet something? Why are you wanting to set up a blog? It all goes back to that. What is your goal with all of your marketing? If your goal is to get more sales, finding your voice to do that, telling your story about why you create, what is interesting to you. If you're a knitter, where do you go to find the best yarns? What does the yarn feel like to you? What does it stir up for you emotionally? When you feel creative, what inspires you? I mean, those are all things that can help you find your voice, but it all should tie back to what your mission is with using all of this media. And I do think it's important to have a plan when you're doing it, because it is for a business. We're talking about business. This isn't just about a person and you can just say and do what you want with it. This is really about connecting back to your business and what you're trying to accomplish. And if you were paying for advertising, if you're doing anything else, you would come up with some kind of marketing plan. And so I think it's important to at least sit down and think about what your goals are to use social media. What do you want to accomplish with it? Are you trying to build readership? Are you trying to build brand awareness? Are you trying to connect with people on a local platform like Pittsburgh? Are you trying to connect to other crafters or people who make what you make? Are you trying to connect to other Etsy sellers? What is your goal with what you're trying to do with every form of social media? And then use that as a way to look back and say, if I post about this, does this fit my goal? Does this help me get where I want to be with what I'm doing? And I think it'll help you kind of stay true to your mission and find your voice in a way that kind of is cohesive too, that it's not going to be different on every platform and you're going to confuse people.
I might also say something that I think everyone here also does is if you are looking for a format to express yourself, your personality and a little bit of transparency should come out in this because of all of the reasons that Emily just stated. But you may find that there's another voice that you want to communicate to people, maybe some of the same people, maybe other people, that personal versus business. I find that to be a challenge with I Made It because Nina and I both blog for I Made It, and a lot of the things that we do are in that same camp. We are interested in providing resources and a voice, and so it can become a little muddy. Is this me speaking? Is this the market speaking? So I have my own separate, Twitter name and my personal account. I have lists where I decide on Facebook who sees, all the things that Lindsay sees. Maybe someone that I'm associated with on a business level, they wouldn't see. So you may be able to express your creative interests by having different identities that might help you to also hone in on your identity for your business specific or crafting specific blogging.
I came in a little bit late, but this is kind of a little bit off what you're talking about right now, but you're talking about Etsy. And I'm a painter. I do fine art kind of painting. I paint portraits of animals, murals. I do a lot of community stuff for I do a lot of volunteer stuff, but then I paint some things, and then that's my other, and then I have another whole world. So is Etsy a place that someone like me wants to show their work?
You can. There are, and Etsy is not the end-all be-all. It just happens to be one of the original, and so it has a really big fan base, and people know about it. So yes, if you want to sell your work, it's a great place to put it. You could also, there's Artfire. There are a couple different ones that you can use as a marketplace. So it doesn't necessarily matter what venue you're using as long as you use it and then you tell people about it. Because with Etsy, depending on what category you're in, if you're in jewelry, you're buried in the minute you post something. I'm in books, it's a little easier for me to stand out, but it's my responsibility as a business owner to drive traffic to my shop. It's not Etsy's responsibility, it's not their job to get you business. it's your job to do that. So wherever you sell your work, it doesn't matter because you still have to drive people there, which is how social media helps you do it. It gets the people to go and become aware of it. So we're depending on your venue. And if you're selling jewelry like your mom just opened her store, she's going to have to work 3 times as hard because there are probably 2/3 of Etsy or half of Etsy is jewelry.
One thing that is helpful about Etsy is that they have developers. They have a lot of developers, and they have a big audience to feed from with what the needs are for independent artists. So they have widgets. They have you can embed into your blog that you have Etsy, or you could put a feed into Facebook. There's a tab. There's all sorts of functionality that Etsy provides just as an outlet.
I would make the argument the advantage to Etsy. A friend of mine from college has started making baby onesies, and she's like, I want to set up a website, and I just wanted to say it is not worth your time and money to build your own online store. You can be up and selling your wares on Etsy in 15 minutes, and they've taken the headache out of it. And I have done both. I've built an online shop 10 years ago before Etsy existed, and then I have sold through existing platforms. And until you're doing the volume, if you're moving tons of stuff, then maybe you want your own store, shopping cart. But when it comes down to, there's all these annoying things like credit card processors, and so to me, that's the real advantage of where do you want to spend your time and energy.
Yeah, so I work by commission, so I don't have, there's nothing to buy.
So there's an interesting feature of Etsy that I was just explaining to the same friend called Alchemy, and maybe one of you guys can chime in. But Etsy has this thing, and I used it successfully. My grandparents spent their first Christmas in Florida last year, and I found an ornament that I was going to throw out, and I sent it to my grandmother, and she sent me this email in all caps. Our tree has one ornament, and I went, oh, well, I'm going to send you ornaments until you can't stand it. So I got on Etsy, and I did a search for holiday ornaments, price low to high, because I was just going for volume, thinking, I'll just buy the 50-cent ornaments and send them, and she can throw them out. Because my aunt said, don't send ornaments, she doesn't want to store them. And I thought, well, at this price, she can throw them out, and I'll send new ones next year. And I ended up ordering all these ornaments, and people were so nice, but I went on and I said, I'm looking for photo Christmas ornaments. And the artists can bid on it. And I got 25 different people willing to make all kinds of interesting ornaments with the photos I sent to them. So you could look on there as an artist for people that are saying, gee, I'm looking for something of my past.
And that was on?
It's part of Etsy. It's a feature of Etsy.
You would need to create an Etsy account, but that would just require you signing up with your name and some information.
But the story thing, so my mother went and sent my grandmother these expensive ornaments, and she was sort of like, eh. My grandparents really liked getting the ornaments from different people, and she saved all the envelopes to show me. She was like, look, these came from Nebraska, and these came from Ohio, and it became this, and I maybe spent $25 total. I actually felt bad. I wanted to go back and send the artist some more money, because the value that it was to me at the end was a lot more. One woman, I ordered 2 ornaments, and she sent me the whole dozen. She said, nobody's bought these, I'm just going to send all of them. But the conversation that was generated, between me and the artists, and, I was much happier than doing that instead of going to Target.com and ordering ornaments. And I was happy with it.
The other thing about Etsy is it's a trusted platform, so people are comfortable buying from there and putting in their credit card information, even though there are thousands and thousands of sellers on there. So having your own website, if it's not executed very professionally, people could be a little hesitant to buy things.
Right. And normally what happens is someone doesn't, I don't have any way to buy anything off my website. You have to actually talk to me.
Right. And there's also, if you do decide to set up a shop on Etsy, most of the people who do craft put it on Etsy. For art, it might be a little different, I'm not as sure, but there's Artfire and 1,000 Markets or different platforms, similar in process, but Etsy also allows people to request custom work from you. So I've had people use it to help me on my page to say, we want it specifically from you, can you make this number of books, these colors, this way, and then kind of get the conversation going there too. So if people like your work and they want something specific and you don't offer custom listing, they can request it that way too. So it's a nice, I think Etsy's wonderful. I've been on it since I think 2006 and have never had a problem with it. It's actually brought me some amazing opportunities that I would not have been afforded had I not been connected to the site.
Does anybody have any questions on things that we can touch on a little bit?
Yeah, going back to your statement about wanting to give the artists more money. Again, not having an Etsy account, not having any of these online stores through platforms. Do any of them offer a donation service to the artists?
Well, Etsy is actually all of the merchant transactions are run through PayPal, so it wouldn't be hard for me to go back and PayPal any more money if I wanted to. That's
Yeah, but
But
I'm
there
saying, do any of them say, hey, if you really liked my work, or
Yeah.
if you want to help me with, I'm doing this marketing?
Yeah, I would challenge you though to price your work according to what it's valued instead of
Well,
accept.
no, I do that anyway. But
Yeah,
I'm just,
because people, it's not like eBay where people are bidding on something and then you get it to the lowest bidder or whoever's the highest bidder on the work. It is the value of your work. You post a price on it, people pay for the price. So if and on Etsy, it is unfortunate that most people undervalue their work, and it's a shame because a lot of people on there are hobbyists and they're just doing it to cover the cost of supplies, not to cover the time and the talent that they have.
I've had instances where people have come back and said,
Yeah.
Here's $20. Well, what's that for? Well, I bought that set of dice off of you last year, and I gave it to my father, who was in the nursing home, and he opened up and told us a whole bunch of stories and died a month later. This is actually true. It happened.
Yeah.
This is a great blog post, by the way.
Yeah.
Like that story right there. I mean, that's that is going to get every other son to buy a set of dice for their father in the nursing home.
But you can, some blogs, depending on the topic and what the people do, you can make a donation, help support my blog, help support me, whatever. It's not uncommon to have a button to say donate.
It's not a built-in feature to Etsy, although I think, at the Business of Craft, we had a really interesting conversation about buying local and the value of products, and I think, I personally am really excited about the social media tools. We are at the beginning of sort of rethinking our consumption habits and where we spend our dollars, and, to me, this movement is really exciting in terms of, I think this is a pushback against sort of the Walmart and over-commercialization of America, of people saying, gee, I would rather spend $20 on dice. I mean, I could probably buy dice for $1, or less elsewhere, but there's a value, and where am I spending it, and who's making it, and where is my dollar going, and we're at the beginning, and I think Etsy and the sort of handmade movement is the beginning of what I think we're going to see a lot more of people wanting to know where their products are coming from and understanding where they're spending their dollars and spending their money behind their values.
And I think wanting to talk to you or hear, whatever you have to say, the story behind your product, it goes back to bringing the personality and bringing your story in. That's a lot of value to be able to tell people how you came up with it and the story about it. That's a lot of value there instead of something generic that you have no idea who made it or where it came from.
I would just like to encourage everybody to try to make a commitment to buy handmade for the holidays, especially because, preaching to the choir, people who understand it and enjoy it, just think about the maker behind it whenever you're making your purchases.
I wanted to mention one other thing. I have been homesick all weekend reading blogs. The Etsy blog is called The Stork. I have no idea why it's called The Stork. But they have a really great series behind other sellers. I think it's called, I Quit My Day Job, or How Did You Quit Your Day Job? And reading some of the other artists talking about what has been valuable in their businesses, even though I don't have a handmade business, has been really helpful. There have been a couple of really great ones about time management. And so the Etsy blog, I definitely think it's a nice mix of here's some cool stuff on Etsy, but then some really great interviews with other artists, especially ones that have been successful in building more of a career out of their business.
And Craft and Make magazine, Craft Scene, and Make their online blogs. You can subscribe in your feed or any other way that makes sense for you. And they have some incredible stories, and that bridges the gap between tech and geeky and crafty and maker and all kinds of good stuff.
I'm aware of the time. I know we've kind of run over by about 5 minutes. Does anybody else have any questions or?
I know that handmade things, it's very important to see exactly what it is. Well, what do you do if you're not that good a photographer?
There are a lot of really great tutorials so there's a couple of different things you can do. You can, go online and through social media, find someone who's able to help, or actually, pay for someone to professionally photograph some of your material, maybe not all of them. Or there's a lot of great tutorials online about making a light box out of just a cardboard box. and some white paper. So it's a matter of that is a really big challenge for a lot of people.
Yeah, and my mom just kind of struggled with that.
Jewelry is difficult to
And
find.
it was just a matter of trying and trying and trying.
Right, yes.
And she had read something on a blog that said, don't go out and buy a $2,000
Right.
camera. You know, she gets gorgeous photos with her point and shoot
I
now.
would say a really great best practice is natural lighting.
Yes.
Is going to be the best.
Especially for
taking
colors to
photos.
show.
And now there's also a lot of really free, nice applications online that you don't need Photoshop. You can sort of, do some touch-ups with some free applications.
Yeah, there's one called GIMP that you can download, and it's totally free, and it's a photo editing software.
I use Picnic a lot.
The other thing you can do is just call the Art Institute and talk to them about doing something with their students.
That's
Any
true.
school that teaches photography.
We have freelance opportunities, so if you want to pay a student rate to film something.
Norm works for the Art Institute. If you haven't
But depending on what you're making, it may make sense to have at least one set of some professionally photographed pieces just to showcase your work, or even to make, say, a banner for your Etsy shop or something like that, and then to work from there.
Yeah, because really, online selling, you have to have good pictures or you won't sell anything. Because people can't touch it, they can't pick it up, turn it around and feel it, so you have to do that for them with your pictures. And then you can use what you're using to list the items to put it on your blog. I mean, you can use those photographs in so many different areas. So if you're not comfortable with your own, or at least to get started, it might make sense to have somebody take them for you and then learn your camera. Get a point and shoot, learn the macro setting, learn how to kind of use different lighting. I've gotten outdoor or indoor light bulbs that mimic outdoor lighting that make a huge difference, or used to make the best difference when I had my older camera. Now with my new one, it doesn't matter so much, but that made a huge difference, and it was a $5 light bulb that can mimic natural lighting. So there are a lot of different tips. There is a tutorial on Etsy, and there are, if you Google photo light boxes, homemade or DIY light boxes, you'll be able to pull up every tutorial for taking pictures. So use the internet. It's already out there. There's no sense in reinventing the wheel, and there are a lot of good tips and tricks out there for it.
Thank you. And we'll be out here if you have some questions afterwards. Thank you.